The Galactic Alliance's official first contact report with Earth was filed under designation Pre-Industrial Remnant Species 7249b. This classification would later be remembered as the greatest administrative error in galactic history. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Alliance's primary council, maintaining a carefully crafted expression of wide-eyed wonder. The massive chamber, with its swirling holographic displays and crystalline architecture, was designed to overwhelm primitive species. She watched the 12 council members, each from a different spacefaring civilization, regard her with what could only be described as patronizing amusement. "And you say your species achieved faster than light travel, independently?" asked High Counselor Merrickx, his iridescent scales shifting through shades of blue that indicated skepticism in his species. "Oh yes," Sarah nodded enthusiastically, clutching her primitive data tablet closer. "We found some rocks that glowed funny when we hit them with electricity. After that, it was just a matter of building bigger rocks and using more electricity." She beamed at them with practiced innocence. The chamber erupted in the various sounds that passed for laughter among the assembled species. Several counselors exchanged knowing looks, or what passed for looks among species that communicated through bioluminescence and pheromones. "Fascinating," purred Subdirector Calix, a being composed primarily of floating plasma contained within an environmental suit. "And these rocks, they allowed you to achieve quantum tunneling. Is that what it's called?" Sarah furrowed her brow. "We just call it the whoosh-zoom drive back home, because it makes a whoosh sound, and then you zoom through space." She demonstrated with childlike hand gestures. More laughter, exactly as expected. Behind her carefully maintained facade, Sarah was simultaneously monitoring 15 different encrypted quantum channels through her neural implant. The primitive tablet she carried contained more computing power than the entire chamber's systems combined. But the Alliance didn't need to know that. "Not yet. We have reviewed your application for Alliance membership," High Counselor Merrickx announced. "While we find your species charmingly ambitious, we believe a prolonged observation period would be most beneficial. Say, 500 planetary cycles." "Oh my, that long." Sarah blinked rapidly, as if fighting back tears. But what about the trading rights and the technology exchange programs?" "My dear," Subdirector Calix's plasma form rippled in what humans had learned was their equivalent of a condescending smile. "Your species barely understands basic quantum mechanics. Allowing you access to Alliance technology would be like giving a plasma cutter to an infant." Sarah dropped her tablet, scattering components across the chamber floor. As she scrambled to pick them up, appearing clumsy and flustered, her neural implant was actually scanning the chamber's security systems. The Alliance's advanced quantum encryption might as well have been a child's cipher to the quantum eye running in her cortical stack. "We will, of course, maintain a presence on your world," Merrickx continued. "For your own protection and guidance. The universe can be quite dangerous for developing species." "That's so kind of you," Sarah gushed, while simultaneously transmitting the security scan data back to Earth Command. "Will we get our own observer? Like a babysitter? An anthropological research team will be assigned to your planet," another counselor explained. "They will study your development and ensure you don't harm yourselves with any technological discoveries." Back on Earth, in a quantum-shielded facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Fleet Admiral James Chen, Sarah's grandfather, received her transmission. He allowed himself a small smile as he reviewed the data. The Alliance's security systems were exactly as primitive as their deep-cover agents had suggested. "How's our girl doing?" asked Dr. Helena Rodriguez, the architect of humanity's quantum consciousness program, as she studied the incoming feeds. "Playing her part perfectly," James replied. "They're falling for it completely, just like the Arcturus protocol predicted." Helena nodded, her augmented eyes scanning through multiple probability matrices simultaneously. "Their patronizing attitude is actually working in our favor. They'll be so busy congratulating themselves on managing the primitive humans, They won't look too closely at why their observation satellites can't penetrate our quantum camouflage, or why their telepaths get nothing but reality TV shows when they try to scan our populations, James added with a chuckle. On one of the massive displays surrounding them, a real-time map showed the positions of humanity's hidden fleets. Thousands of ships, cloaked in quantum fields that made them invisible even to Alliance advanced sensors, maintained their silent vigil around Earth and its colonies. Below the Pacific facility, stretching for hundreds of kilometers through the Earth's crust, the great quantum computers continued their work, coordinating humanity's true technological infrastructure. Status report from the Mars shipyards, a technician called out. The Prometheus-class vessels are ahead of schedule. Quantum drive efficiency is now 300% higher than Alliance standards. James nodded. Keep everything running at minimal power. As far as the Alliance is concerned, we're still burning chemical rockets to visit our own moon. Back in the Alliance chamber, Sarah was doing her best to appear overwhelmed by a simple holographic display of the local star cluster. And all these little lights are actual stars, she gasped. Not just a pretty picture. Indeed, Merrick's replied, his scales now shifting to the green hues of self-satisfaction. Perhaps in a few centuries, your species will be advanced enough to understand how this technology functions. Wow, Sarah breathed, while her neural implant completed its final scans. I hope someday we can be as smart as you. The Alliance had no way of knowing that humanity had already surpassed their level of technology in most areas. They couldn't know that Earth's apparent radio broadcasts and primitive space program were an elaborate charade, maintained by quantum field manipulators that made human civilization appear centuries behind its actual development. They had no idea that the primitive humans had been watching them for decades, carefully planning their approach to galactic society, or that humanity's quantum technology had evolved along completely different lines than the Alliance's, making it virtually undetectable to their scanning systems. As Sarah left the chamber, stumbling slightly for effect, she received a priority message through her neural link. The quantum AI networks had finished their analysis of Alliance capabilities. The results confirmed what humanity had suspected. The Alliance's technological development had stagnated centuries ago, their society calcified around a rigid hierarchy of supposed superiority. They would never expect that the primitive humans they so enjoyed patronizing were about to change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. But first, humanity would play along with their assumptions. After all, being underestimated was humanity's greatest advantage. And deep beneath the Pacific, Admiral Chen given the order to proceed with Phase 2 of the Arcturus Protocol. The real first contact was about to begin. The first sign that something was wrong came from Proxima Centauri colony, not from any official channels. Those remained carefully filled with the expected chatter of a primitive human settlement, but through quantum-encrypted channels that the Alliance didn't even know existed. Admiral Chen studied the report in his neural feed while maintaining a perfect poker face during a vid call with Alliance observer Tix 427. The crystalline being was in the middle of explaining, with painful condescension, how humans might one day grasp the basics of terraforming. Fascinating, Chen said, playing the role of an awestruck military officer from a backwater planet. And you can actually change a planet's atmosphere. But his real attention was on the report. Proxima's quantum sensors had detected Alliance ships approaching the colony. Ships that weren't supposed to be there. Ships using cloaking technology that the Alliance claimed was centuries beyond humanity's understanding. Of course, such concepts might be difficult for you to grasp at your current level of development. Tix 427 chimed, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated smug satisfaction. Oh, I'm sure, Chen agreed absently, while simultaneously issuing encrypted orders through his neural link. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden quantum defense grid silently activated. In the Mars shipyards, crews began preparations without a single visible sign of activity. The call ended, and Chen turned to Dr. Rodriguez. They're making their move earlier than we expected. Helena nodded, her augmented eyes cycling through spectrum after spectrum of data. The Proxima governor reports 3 Alliance dreadnoughts dropping out of FTL at the edge of their system. Official channels show nothing, of course. Of course, Chen grimaced. They still think our detection range ends at Jupiter. Status of the Proxima defense grid. Fully operational but remaining in ghost mode. The Alliance ships won't detect anything until it's too late. Helena paused, reviewing new data. Sir, we're detecting quantum signature matches. These are the same class of ships that disappeared in the Arcturus sector last month. That got Chen's attention. The Arcturus incident had been carefully orchestrated. A seeming accident where Alliance ships encountered apparent sensor ghosts and mechanical failures. The Alliance had written it off as equipment malfunction in primitive space. They never realized they'd wandered into a classified testing ground for humanity's latest quantum weapons. They're not just observing anymore, Chen mused. They're probing our defenses. The question is, why now? The answer came 12 hours later, in the form of a priority alert from Sarah Chen, still playing her role at the Alliance capital. Her neural transmission was heavily encrypted, compressed into a burst of data that would appear as nothing more than stellar background radiation to Alliance sensors. The Council is planning something big, her message read. I intercepted quantum-encrypted communications between High Counselor Merrick's and the Military Directorate. They're calling it Project Shepherd, some kind of massive anthropological study. But the resource allocation doesn't match. They're mobilizing ships across the sector, far more than needed for simple observation. In the depths of the Pacific facility, Chen called an emergency meeting of Earth's true leadership, not the public-facing government that the Alliance saw, but the quantum-linked network of military, scientific, and civilian leaders who actually guided humanity's development. They think they're being subtle. Chen addressed the assembled holograms of Earth's decision-makers, running their ships dark, using their best stealth technology. Technology they believe is centuries beyond us. The arrogance of their assumptions works in our favor, General Sarah Martinez commented from her hidden base in the asteroid belt. Their stealth systems are calibrated to hide from what they think our sensors can detect. They might as well be setting off fireworks in front of our quantum arrays. Dr. Rodriguez brought up a holographic display of the sector. Red dots indicated Alliance ship movements. Hundreds of them, all converging on human space under what they believed was perfect stealth. Analysis suggests they're planning a comprehensive study of human civilization, she reported. Their ships are equipped with advanced scanning technology, designed to penetrate what they believe is our primitive shielding. They want to understand how we achieve faster-than-light travel so quickly, Chen concluded. They think we're hiding something. They just grossly underestimate what that something is. The real question, Martinez interjected, is whether we maintain the charade or show our hand. Chen studied the tactical display, watching as more Alliance ships moved into position. They were following standard Alliance doctrine for studying primitive species, complete sensor coverage, hidden observation posts, and comprehensive data gathering. It was a textbook operation, assuming your target was actually primitive. We maintain course, he decided, but we activate Contingency Aurora. If they want to study us, let's give them something interesting to observe. Across human space, quantum signals carried new orders. In hidden shipyards and underground bases, preparations began. On the surface, human civilization continued its carefully orchestrated display of primitive technology and development. But beneath that facade, humanity's true capabilities were about to be tested. In her quarters on the Alliance capital station, Sarah Chen received her new orders and allowed herself a small smile. The Alliance thought they were about to conduct a comprehensive study of a primitive species. Instead, they were about to become test subjects themselves, in an experiment they didn't even know was running. The pieces were in place. The next move belonged to the Alliance, and humanity was ready to show them just how wrong their assumptions had been. At exactly the right moment. Deep in the quantum networks that the Alliance couldn't detect, the countdown to Contingency Aurora had begun. The galaxy was about to learn why underestimating humanity was the last mistake anyone should make. The Alliance's Project Shepherd began on what they thought was an ordinary day. Their stealth ships moved into position around Earth's colonies, their most advanced sensors probing what they believed were primitive human defenses. They expected to find crude satellites, basic orbital platforms, and perhaps a few stumbling attempts at planetary shields. They found nothing. In the Alliance Council chamber, High Counselor Merrick's scales shifted to alarmed crimson. "What do you mean, disappeared?" The holographic report from the fleet commander flickered. "Exactly that, Counselor. We're reading no technology signatures, no power emissions, no communications. It's as if their civilization simply vanished." Sarah Chen sat in her primitive quarters, watching the panic spread through Alliance Command. Through her neural link, she monitored the real situation. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had simply dropped the quantum veil that had hidden their true technology for so long. Now the Alliance ships were trying to scan empty space, their sensors still calibrated for primitive technology that no longer appeared to exist. Phase 1 complete. She transmitted to Earth Command. They took the bait. Admiral Chen received the message in the Pacific facility, now operating at full power. Around him, the quantum computers that coordinated humanity's defense grid processed data at speeds the Alliance couldn't comprehend. "Execute Phase 2, he ordered. Across human space, quantum fields shifted. Alliance sensors suddenly detected something new, energy signatures unlike anything in their database. Massive structures began appearing in orbit around every human world, emerging from quantum fields that had rendered them completely invisible. On the Alliance capital station, alarms blared as their sensors registered the impossible. Where moments ago they had detected nothing, now they saw a civilization that, by their measurements, would rank as a Class 3 society, far beyond humanity's supposed Level 7 primitive status. "Impossible," Merrick breathed, his scales now cycling through patterns that indicated severe distress. "Their technology. This can't be right." "Oh, but it is." Sarah Chen's voice came from behind him. She stood in the council chamber doorway. But something was different. Gone was the wide-eyed, fumbling primitive. In her place stood a woman whose very presence seemed to command the room. Her primitive tablet was gone, replaced by streams of holographic data that danced around her in patterns that made several council members flinch. "What are you?" Subdirector Calix's plasma form rippled with alarm. "Exactly what we've always been," Sarah replied, her augmented eyes now glowing with unveiled quantum technology. "Human. You just never bothered to look past your own assumptions." In orbit around Earth, Alliance observers watched in shock as their sensors registered more impossible readings. The primitive orbital platforms they'd been monitoring dissolved like mirages, revealing vast shipyards and defense platforms that dwarfed anything in the Alliance fleet. "Let me tell you what's about to happen," Sarah continued, addressing the stunned council. "Right now, your ships are detecting our actual technology level. What you're seeing is about 30% of our true capabilities, just enough to make you understand how completely you've misread the situation." Through quantum feeds, she watched as Alliance ships. Admiral Chen, watching from the Pacific facility, felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The quantum probability matrices had predicted this outcome, but seeing it become reality was something else entirely. "The last of the old Alliance hardliners have accepted the new reality," Dr. Rodriguez reported, her augmented eyes scanning multiple data streams. Even they couldn't deny the benefits of open cooperation. "The last holdout world signed the Concordat Treaty this morning." "And Project Unity?" Chen asked. "Ahead of schedule. The combined quantum computing networks of 17 different civilizations, each developed along different principles, working in harmony. We're seeing computational capabilities that were theoretical just a year ago." In the Concordat chamber, Sarah brought up the final displays. "But our greatest achievement isn't technological," she announced. "It's this." She gestured to the assembled representatives. "Different species, different paths, different approaches, all working together. We've proven that diversity of development isn't just acceptable, it's essential. The chamber hummed with agreement, expressed in ways as varied as the species present. Light patterns, pheromones, quantum resonances, all conveying the same sentiment: unity in diversity. The old alliance feared different paths because they couldn't control them. Sarah continued. They built a hierarchy based on conformity, but the universe doesn't favor a single path. Evolution, biological, technological, societal, thrives on diversity. In the depths of space, at the edge of explored territory, a combined concordat expedition was making first contact with a newly discovered civilization. But unlike the old days, they weren't there to judge or classify. They were there to learn, to share, to discover new ways of thinking and developing. We propose a new mission for the concordat, Sarah announced. Not to control technological development, but to nurture it in all its forms. Not to enforce a single path, but to celebrate the infinite ways that intelligent life can solve the universe's mysteries. The proposal passed unanimously, something that would have been impossible under the old alliance system. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where cooperation replaced competition, where diversity was strength, and where no civilization had to hide its true nature. In the Pacific facility, Admiral Chen watched the vote with satisfaction. Humanity's greatest achievement, he mused, wasn't developing advanced technology. It was proving that there's always another way. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. The quantum matrices are showing probability lines we've never seen before. With so many different approaches working together, the future is more open than ever. And across the galaxy, on worlds that had once hidden their achievements in fear, civilization stepped fully into the light. The age of shadows and secrets was over. The real golden age of galactic civilization had begun. Ready to start the next phase? Sarah asked her grandfather through their quantum link. Always, Chen replied. The universe is infinite. And now, finally, we can explore it together, all of us, in all our wonderful diversity. The stars stretched out before them, filled with possibilities that no single civilization could have imagined alone. The galaxy had learned its lesson. True greatness comes not from enforcing a single path, but from embracing all paths that lead to understanding. Humanity had changed the galaxy not through force or superiority, but by proving the simple truth: there's always another way forward. And in that truth lay the seeds of a future brighter than any single species could have created alone. The Proxians you dismissed as pre-industrial. They've mastered zero-point energy. The Centaurians you classified as primitive agrarians. They've developed biotechnology that makes your medical science look medieval. All hiding, all waiting, all watching to see what would happen when humanity finally showed its hand. Alliance sensors across the galaxy were going haywire as quantum fields dropped everywhere. Civilizations they had dismissed as backwards or primitive suddenly revealed technologies that rivaled or surpassed Alliance capabilities. This is impossible, one council member whispered. Our surveillance was only detecting what we wanted you to detect, Admiral Chen finished. Your certainty in your own superiority made you blind to the possibility that others might be capable of deceiving you. In the Pacific facility, Dr. Rodriguez monitored the quantum feeds as more and more hidden civilizations revealed themselves. The Alliance's carefully ordered hierarchy was dissolving in real time. The galaxy is far more diverse than you imagined, Sarah continued, and far more advanced. The only question now is whether the Alliance can adapt to a new reality, one where you're not automatically at the top of the technological hierarchy. Through quantum channels, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Arcturus Republic, the Proxian Collective, the Centaurian Concordat, dozens of supposedly primitive civilizations dropping their masks simultaneously. Each had developed along their own path. Each had achieved technological breakthroughs that the Alliance had deemed impossible. Your choice is simple, Admiral Chen's hologram stated. Adapt or become irrelevant. The age of technological orthodoxy is over. The real galaxy is far more interesting than you imagined. Merrickx looked around the council chamber, at the faces and forms of his fellow council members. Centuries of certainty were crumbling around them. But in that destruction lay an opportunity, a chance to build something new. Perhaps, he said slowly, his scales shifting to a thoughtful green, it is time for the Alliance to evolve. The galaxy was changing. The careful hierarchies and rigid protocols that had governed technological development for centuries were falling away. In their place, something new was emerging. A galaxy where different paths to advancement were not just tolerated, but celebrated. And humanity, the species that had been dismissed as primitive, had been the catalyst for it all. In the Pacific facility, Admiral Chen allowed himself a small smile. "Initiate final phase," he ordered. "Let's show them what real cooperation between civilizations can achieve." The real evolution of galactic society was about to begin. 1 year after humanity's revelation, the galaxy was a very different place. The great chamber of the newly formed Galactic Concordat bore little resemblance to the old Alliance Council room. Representatives from dozens of previously primitive civilizations sat alongside former Alliance members, their various forms illuminated by technology that would have been deemed impossible just months ago. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, no longer playing a role. Her augmented eyes swept the chamber, taking in the miraculous sight of genuine cooperation between diverse species and civilizations. "The first-year report is ready," she announced. "The integration of different technological approaches has exceeded all projections. The Proxian zero-point reactors, combined with Centaurian biotechnology and Alliance quantum mechanics, have opened paths of development none of us could have achieved alone." The assembled representatives, former enemies and hidden allies alike, absorbed the data streaming through their various sensory interfaces. The numbers were staggering. "Medical advancement has jumped forward by an estimated century," she continued. "The Arcturus Republic's psychic healing techniques, merged with Alliance medical science and human quantum biology, have cured diseases we thought untreatable. We've terraformed worlds in months instead of centuries. We've opened new dimensions of space travel that none of us, alone, could have accessed." High Counselor Merrickx, now serving as just one voice among equals, felt his scales shift to a color of wonder, a new shade he'd never displayed before. "We were so wrong," he admitted. "All those centuries of believing our path was the only path." "The past is past," Sarah replied diplomatically. "What matters is what we build now." In orbit above Earth, the combined fleet of the Concordat hung like a gallery of impossible dreams. Ships of every conceivable design and principle, some powered by zero-point energy, others by quantum drives, still others by technologies that defied traditional classification. Each represented a different path of development, a different way of solving the universe's mysteries. Admiral Chen's voice came through on the Council Chamber's comm system, a system the Alliance had thought was secure. "Your ships are currently experiencing our quantum containment fields. Don't worry, they're perfectly safe. Consider this a demonstration of what happens when you underestimate a species based on your own preconceptions." The Council Chamber erupted in chaos as reports flooded in from across Alliance space. Every ship, every probe, every surveillance device they had sent to study humanity was now held immobile, caught in fields of energy their sensors couldn't even properly detect. So, Sarah addressed the Council, her augmented eyes scanning their reactions. "Shall we discuss a new relationship between humanity and the Alliance? One based on actual equality rather than your hierarchical assumptions." The galaxy was changing. The carefully maintained order of the Alliance was crumbling in the face of humanity's revealed capabilities. And this was just the beginning. In the Pacific facility, Admiral Chen watched the situation unfold exactly as the quantum probability matrices had predicted. "Initiate Phase 3, he ordered. "It's time to show them why cooperation is better than competition." The real first contact was about to begin, not between primitive humans and advanced aliens, but between equals. Whether the Alliance could adapt to this new reality remained to be seen. Alliance High Command was in chaos. The quantum stasis fields holding their ships had dissipated, but the damage to their worldview was permanent. Centuries of certainty about their technological superiority had crumbled in a matter of hours. Full diplomatic recognition, Admiral Chen addressed the emergency session of the Alliance Council, his hologram dominating the chamber. Immediate cessation of all covert surveillance operations in human space, and a complete review of your species' classification protocols. The council members exchanged glances. The human admiral's hologram displayed technology far beyond their own capabilities, three-dimensional, fully interactive, with no visible projectors or power source. You must understand our position. Merrick spoke carefully, his scales now a diplomatic shade of blue-green. Your species' development path is unprecedented. The protocols exist for a reason. Your protocols, Sarah Chen interjected, are based on fear. Fear of different paths, different methods, different ways of thinking. Her augmented eyes swept the chamber. We've accessed your historical records. Every species that developed technology along a different path than yours was deemed a threat. Some were contained. Others disappeared. The silence in the chamber was deafening. In orbit above Earth, the Alliance's flagship hung motionless, surrounded by ships that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. Human vessels of designs that defied Alliance understanding, operating on principles that their best scientists couldn't comprehend. Perhaps, Subdirector Calix's plasma form pulsed thoughtfully. We have been inflexible in our approach. Inflexible. Sarah's laugh held no humor. You've created a galactic society that punishes innovation. Any species that doesn't follow your prescribed technological path is treated as a threat. How many civilizations have you stunted? How many potential allies have you turned into subjects? On displays across the chamber, data began streaming. Information from humanity's hidden quantum archives. Records of species after species, forced to abandon promising technologies because they didn't fit the Alliance's approved development path. We're not here to overthrow your society, Admiral Chen's hologram stated firmly. But change is coming, whether you're ready or not. Humanity isn't the only species that's been hiding its true capabilities. That statement sent ripples of alarm through the council. Merrick's scales shifted to a worried purple. What do you mean? In response, quantum fields across Alliance space began to shift. On dozens of worlds classified as primitive or developing, hidden technologies suddenly became visible to Alliance sensors. Civilizations that had been playing the same game as humanity, hiding their true capabilities behind carefully constructed facades. Did you really think we were the only ones? Sarah's smile was razor-sharp. We've been in contact with others like us for years. Species that chose to hide rather than submit to your technological orthodoxy. The displays showed more data. Hidden quantum communications networks connecting supposedly primitive worlds. Advanced civilizations that had developed along completely different paths than the Alliance, sharing knowledge and resources in secret.